Wait, so let me get this one straight. You're willing to pay a mid-level, overrated, underperforming wide receiver and quarterback duo, top of the market, generational, record-setting money, but you're not willing to pay a top 3 to 5 pass rusher who is also homegrown, and you are gonna sit in front of me and tell me in this press conference that this is, quote, done because you needed to stop the run? There is something very fishy about what is going on with Jerry Jones in Dallas. We don't typically see star players in the Dallas building requesting trades when they can't come to a contract. And there is no doubt that struck a nerve deep in that building where it came off as ungrateful. And that is what, conscious or not, the Jones family did not like, because they see themselves as everybody's ticket, as if none of the players would be able to live and breathe or have nice things or be successful without the handouts that Jones family is giving. And Micah challenged that. Micah understood and was in a unique position to say, I am just entering the prime of my career. I'm only ascending and I don't need you. I could do bad all by myself. And that put the Jones in their place where they have long deserved to be. My hunch is that a lot of folks don't like working with David Mulugheta, who is Deshaun Watson's agent, because he did that deal in terms of guaranteed money, and Jerry doesn't want to get exposed or taken to the cleaners like Jimmy Haslam did. There is something going on here that meets the eye, because they also got absolutely nothing for Micah Parsons. I respect Kenny Clark, and he is no scrub, but we know that D tackles, unless they go by the name of Aaron Donald, don't wreck the game way a star pass rusher like Micah, who can also drop into coverage, by the way, make plays on the ball, by the way. Don't tell me that the Cowboys had to make this deal. Don't tell me that they had to give him away for nothing. The Cowboys wanted to move on from being embarrassed. They chose to be embarrassed by making a bad trade rather than being embarrassed by the structure of the contract that they believed David Mulugheta would work over them. There's just no other explanation for going directly to the player and still giving pushback when he says, no, go through my agent. I don't do handshake deals. This harkens back to what the Texans owner said, is you don't want the inmates taking over the prison. We want to think of Jerry Jones as somebody who gives these players an opportunity, puts them in an organization that is so glamorous and so valuable and loved that their personal stock is going to go through the roof. But Micah doesn't need the Cowboys in the way that Dak does, because people objectively look at Dak's talent and understand that there is far too many varying opinions on him. And if he gets traded, he is not going to be treated like royalty, because there are people who think that Dak is a subpar quarterback. Some think he's the 20th best quarterback, and would be the same case with CeeDee Lamb. These are two players who are worshipped and beloved by the Cowboys because they're their own. But if they walked outside of those walls, they would be in contention for a starting job and being the #1 receiver. You can't tell me that there is a huge difference between Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones in comparison to Dak. If Dak was with the Colts, he would be in the same quarterback competition with a player who all of you say looks horrible. And if you think I'm tripping on this, ask yourself, in what world, if Myles Garrett was traded or TJ Watt was traded, would they only get a return of 2 first-round picks? There is something going on with the Micah Parsons dynamic that they were willing to let him walk out the door so soon. They don't want him speaking out. They want a bunch of dudes who are going to fall in line and drool over their money. And Micah's got too big of a platform and too big of a following and too big of a skill set where he could walk on any team right now and rack up 10 to 15 sacks with his eyes closed. For Green Bay, it is absolutely time for Jordan Love to step up to the plate, not because he got that massive contract that some people think he should not have gotten so soon. The big knock on the Packers is that they don't have a pass rush. They haven't consistently had a guy in a very long time to scare the quarterback and make other offensive coordinators lay awake at night. They now have that with Micah, and it is time for Jordan Love to deliver. This could be the move that catapults the Green Bay Packers into really winning the division. We know that these games in that division are almost always down to the wire, and with a closer like Micah Parsons, who is going to get pressure and going to require double teams, may open things up for the rest of that defense. And remember, last year I told you that Jeff Hafley, coming from Boston College, was going to take a lot of folks by surprise by scheming up a defense that put his players in the best position to succeed, accentuating their strengths. And there is a reason that that team led in takeaways for the majority of the season and ended up at number 2 overall. This is a team that is going to be flying around. They are going to be getting their hands on the ball. And I think that as good of a player as Kenny Clark is, almost all of us who have a few working brain cells would prefer to have Micah Parsons or a pass rusher in general over a defensive tackle who's good at stopping the run. I think it is time for this team to more than deliver. This should be able to get Green Bay in a stratosphere that they could not have touched unless they got a guy like Micah. For the longest time, I was guilty of downplaying Micah's impact because he had somewhat of a down year last year. But if you don't think this is comeback season similar to Luka Doncic dropping all that weight and going into beast mode, you are surely mistaken. There is no doubt that this changes the complexion of the NFC, and it's time to see if Jordan Love can really ball. You have all of your main positions solidified. Everything is shored up, and it will fall solely on the shoulders of Jordan Love, and he's gotta take care of the ball. That is what this comes down to, because Mike is gonna be your closer. So you gotta give that defense just a little bit of wiggle room. Let them play with a lead and let Micah get a game-winning sack or pressure for Xavier and McKinney to pick the ball off. I am always higher on the Green Bay Packers than seemingly everybody because I believe in the untapped potential and ceiling of Jordan Love if he can take care of the ball. And that is a major if. That is the difference between his play style and Patrick Mahomes, who decided back a few years ago that he's just going to stop playing games and stop turning the ball over. And that is how they reached another dimension. The Green Bay Packers have now got to be on many people's short lists for Super Bowl contenders. All you need is the bounce of the ball in one different way, and they could easily overtake a team like Philadelphia, who they didn't even look like they belonged on the same field as. Micah is that good. Now, lastly, on this point of the Cowboys, if you're a Cowboys player, if you're a Cowboys fan, how debilitating and life-sucking is letting Micah Parsons walk out that door for nothing? The season starts in a week. You play the Philadelphia Eagles in a week, and you know you got no shot. You didn't have a shot before Micah left, and now you really don't have a shot. This is going to create a culture of players, especially divas like CeeDee Lamb, who are going to be playing for individual stats, who are going to be unhappy with their prospects. If it didn't feel like Jerry Jones was checked out by just letting Mike McCarthy walk and then bringing in Brian Schottenheimer, if that didn't already feel like they were giving up and they weren't taking this seriously, you let your best player walk out the door for 2 first-round picks who you're trying to convince me on a press conference is not going to be missed? I'm sorry, but them saying, well, just see what we do with those 2 first-round picks. Isn't the point of getting a first-round pick finding a guy like Micah Parsons who went a much higher in the draft than he should have? You found a gem in him and you're letting him walk out because he hurt your feelings and embarrassed your family? I used to be one of the people who believed Jerry Jones wanted to win football games, but that ship has sailed a long time ago. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you next time.